For this project, we're going to use some black walnut. I've already rough cut some lumber and got it prepped for the next step. But before we use any power tools on the video, I want to quote one of the most well-known television woodworkers out there, Norm Abrams. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there's no more important safety rule than to wear these, your safety glasses. Now, to get the lumber ready for the next step, we'll cross-cut it an inch or two longer than what the final dimensions are going to be. Then we planered it to a uniform thickness of 3/4, and this is extremely important. So send all the boards through the planer, then adjust the handle, send all the boards through again. This will guarantee uniform thickness among all your boards. After the planer, we jointed one edge straight, and then table sawed them all without adjusting the fence to ensure a uniform width. One of the things you might run into using rough lumber is a wane on both edges of the board. To remedy this, go ahead and joiner one edge straight. Then we're going to measure to the widest possible point from the jointed edge. Putting the jointed edge against the fence, table saw to that measurement. Then place our board in the stack with the rest of the remainder of the boards, and then we set our fence to our final dimension to ensure that they're all exactly the same width. Alright, so we've got our lumber table sawed to width, planered to thickness, but a couple inches longer than what the final dimension should be. So what we're going to do next is go back to the cross-cutting saw and square up one end of the board, measure out the length we need, and for our sides it's 36, and then cut the opposite end. To guarantee that both sides and both shelves are exactly the same length in pairs, use a stop block. We're going to do the same thing with the two lower shelf pieces. They're going to be cut to 24. We'll save the top piece for later so we can measure and fit exact. Alright, we're back from the cross-cutting saw. We've got our two shelves that are cut to exactly the same length. And we've got our two sides that are cut to exactly the same length. Now, I have not cut to length the top rail. Even though we got a cut list and we could cut this to length, we're going to wait and adjust accordingly because this has got to fit nice and tight to avoid any gaps. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're working on projects like this. Don't cut pieces till you're ready to use them so you can adjust accordingly if needed. Now with the plans, or you may have one already made for you, there should be a diagram to lay out for this pattern. Orientated on the board, so you work your way around a split or any imperfections and trace it out. Alright, now that our pattern's laid out, the tendency for a lot of people is to want to see progress rather quickly, and they'll head over to the bandsaw or grab the jigsaw out of the tool cabinet. Well, that's going to make the step after that, a dado and a rabbet for the shelves, a little bit more difficult to do because we won't have this straight rectangle board to work with. We'll be dealing with a lot of curved cuts. Another mistake that can happen is you can actually make two left sides or two right sides. Not very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to position the boards so they're a mirror image in the same direction, and somewhere that there's scrap, we're going to write FR and FL for front right and front left. Then we're going to unfold them, or open the book, so to speak, and we'll lay out our dados on the inside, so when we go over to the table saw or the router, we make a matched pair rather than two of the same sides. Lay out a rabbet on the bottom, 3/4 of an inch thick, so measure up 3/4. Then 6 inches in between them, we're going to put a second line and measure up another 3/4 for the shelf. I always like to put a double line so you know exactly where to position the router bit or the dado blade. And then square the lines across. One other tip is I like to transfer the lines up to the edge of the board. This makes setting up the table saw or the router a little bit easier also. Well, this wraps up the first part of the video. So far we've rough cut our material, got our sides and our shelves cut down to actual size, did some pattern layout, and marked out for our dado and rabbet for the bottom shelves. Moving on to the second part of this video, we'll use the table saw to cut the dado and rabbet for the lower shelves, bandsaw out the design for the gun rack, and then ease all the edges with the roundover router. Finally, in the third part of the video, we'll assemble and finish the whole gun rack.